when the Great Plague came to the Sol Valley, threatening to make Brionne a city of corpses rather than its famed city of thieves, there was a great surge of religious sentiment throughout the region. The shrines and temples of Shalia were overwhelmed with converts, and her priestesses, already decimated by illness, were driven near to exhaustion by the endless demands placed upon their healing magic. Further upriver, in the town of Corumdrum, a score of hideous deaths gave the people a sharp reminder of their duty to pray to the gods who might protect them, a duty that many had long neglected. Yet, as ever, when the god of plague and pestilence sets his mark upon a land, some among the faithful abandoned their old gods and turned their prayers instead to the Lord of Decay. Hoping not for salvation, but to purchase safety through appeasement, they whispered into the void, praying that Nurgle's gaze might fall upon others. One such petitioner was Ophiria, wife of the ruddy-faced harness-maker Remy Brousse. Remy was not a cruel man. He was not quarrelsome, nor unfaithful. His crime, if it could be called such, was only that he had grown fat and indolent, while his wife remained slender, restless, and bitter. They had no children, and the years had stretched between them into tedium. Among his neighbors, however, Remy was beloved. Skilled with his hands, he fashioned harnesses and straps for rich and poor alike. Where leather was scarce, he made do with rope or cord, never refusing those in need. But Ophiria, who longed for freedom and found her husband repellent, cared nothing for his virtues. Knowing her beauty would soon fade, she resolved to act before time robbed her of choice. If she could inherit her husband's shop, it would serve as a dowry, and she might yet find a mate more to her taste. And so she prayed. She prayed devoutly to the god of pestilence, whispering in the dark,
"Please take my husband, who has become useless and burdensome to me, but would make a fine and fleshy morsel for one such as you."
And Nurgle, in his backhanded generosity, answered. Before Ophiria's eyes, Remy wasted away. His flesh melted from his bones as if consumed from within. And though she had prayed for it, guilt pierced her heart as she watched his body break under the weight of disease. Still worse, she began to imagine that her neighbors suspected her blasphemy. To shield herself, Ophiria raised her voice in loud condemnations of the cruel god who had robbed her of all that she loved. When Remy died, she wailed over his coffin and followed it to the grave, shrieking and rending her clothes. Day after day she returned, barefoot, dressed in mourning black. She knelt in the earth, tearing her flesh to draw false tears before the priests of Mor and the other mourners. Outwardly, she cursed Nurgle. Inwardly, she gave him thanks. On the first and second day, her performance convinced, yet her anxiety remained. She resolved to continue one day longer. On the third morning, she returned again to Remy's grave. As she knelt and began her lamentations, the soil beneath her stirred. Worms writhed upward from the earth, monstrous worms, longer than any she had ever seen. One coiled about her wrist, another bound her arm. They crawled across her shoulders, her neck, her face. She screamed as their slick bodies formed into tack and bridle, winding about her waist as girth straps, slithering across her back to form a saddle. And then, upon that saddle, a rider. Her cries became unearthly shrieks, so piercing that the priests of Mor rushed from their shrine. But by the time they arrived, Ophiria was gone. The Worm Rider had claimed her, and she was never seen again in Corumdrum. Her neighbors shook their heads. Some whispered that she had been driven mad by grief and that she cursed Nurgle too loudly. Others muttered of judgment. All agreed on two things: that it is folly for a widow to grieve too much, and that Remy Brousse would be sorely missed, for no other man in the province could fashion harnesses from such meager scraps with such skill.